What if the thing holding you back isn't a lack of discipline, but the belief that if it can't be done perfectly, it's not worth doing at all? In this episode, I'm talking about how all or nothing thinking shows up in our habits, our expectations, and our relationships, and how learning to let imperfect still count be the key to real momentum. Hey lady, welcome to the Highly Sensitive Woman podcast. Do you struggle with self-doubt, setting boundaries, or feeling overwhelmed? My name is Alyssa, and I'm a highly sensitive woman who spent years trying to fit in, ignoring my own needs, and living in constant fear of disappointing others. But I finally discovered the power of embracing who I am, and now I don't feel so broken. In this podcast, you'll learn to find your voice, set boundaries, and live with bold confidence and inner peace. Grab a cozy blanket. It's time to connect with someone just like you. Welcome back to the Highly Sensitive Woman. It is January 2026, and we are all finding ourselves setting New Year's resolutions or goals or intentions for the year. And so often when we do that, we have these very lofty expectations, and what can kind of creep in is this very familiar inner rule of if it can't be done the right way, then it's not worth doing. And that logic can be very convincing. It sounds like we have some standards. It sounds like some self-respect, knowing what you want, but it can also cost us significantly because it can keep us frozen more often than it's actually moving us forward. So I have been talking about how big of a milestone it has been to turn 47 in the last year, and part of my celebration of that life experience is that I am training for the Indy Mini. And for those of you who don't know what the Indy Mini is, it is a half marathon in Indianapolis that finishes on the Indianapolis 500 racetrack. And it is one of the largest, if not the largest, half marathon in the entire world. And I didn't know when I signed up for it this year that the race in May of 2026 is going to be the 50th anniversary. But to kind of give some backstory, this has been a goal of mine since I was a freshman in college. And when I was in college, it always fell on the weekend of finals. And so I could never sign up for it because I never knew if I was going to have finals or not. And then I moved to Georgia and, just kind of moved on with my life. And getting back here in May was a challenge. I have completed a couple half marathons in my life, but not this one. And this one was the original half marathon goal. It's just kind of been lingering out there, and I've signed up for it a couple of times and not been able to complete it. And so this year it feels really, really significant, and I will be exactly 1 month older than my grandmother was when she passed away. And so there's kind of this added pressure and excitement to complete this. And as a result, I have been training for a while. And a few weeks ago, I went to the gym and I had 20 minutes from the time I walked in the door to the time that I needed to be walking out of the door. That included my warm-up, the workout itself, and the cool down and getting my behind home. So 20 minutes is not a lot of time to get any sort of, physical benefit from that. My heart rate was barely elevated. I didn't sweat. And it absolutely was not the workout that I would have chosen or planned if I'd had more time. But I didn't have a ton of time that day. And in the past, what I would have said to myself is, I don't have time to fit this in, so I'm just going to skip today and I will go tomorrow. And then maybe tomorrow I would, and maybe tomorrow would come and go, and I didn't have time for it then. So the idea of, 20 minutes from the time I walked in the door to the time I left, an old interpretation that I have had and could have had in that moment is this isn't enough, it doesn't really count, it's not worth the effort, all of those types of things. And instead, when I went this time, what I really celebrated as I walked out the door was this wasn't about the physiological benefit that I got from going to the gym. It was relational. And that relation building thing that I was celebrating was that I kept a promise to myself. And that is a subtle but very powerful shift, because building trust both with ourselves and with others, it is built through follow through, and it is not built through intensity. And that momentum that you get starts with just showing up. But so often we stay stuck in this mindset of it has to be exactly the way that I want it to be, or it quote unquote needs to be to make it worth doing. And that all or nothing thinking, it feels very, very justified. And this mindset kind of hooks us and pulls us in because it protects us from disappointment. It helps us avoid the discomfort that can come from partial effort. And believe me, there was some of that, like, I didn't even get my heart rate up. I wasn't even sweating. How is this going to prepare me for running 13.1 miles? All of that discomfort that comes with partial effort, that all or nothing thinking kind of prevents it from showing up. And then it also keeps our identity as someone who does things the right way intact. But here's the paradox. That standard that you have that is meant to push you forward, what it actually does is keep us stuck and stalled where we are, because we are waiting for those ideal conditions to be completely in place before we can move forward. And that waiting, that is what becomes the habit. And it doesn't just show up with our fitness. This idea of, if I can't do it perfectly, I won't start. Missing one day could equal quitting entirely. We also find ourselves over planning instead of doing. It can show up in our relationships when we are expecting others to respond or communicate or change in very specific ways. It can also show up when we are withdrawing, when someone doesn't fully meet an expectation that we have of them. We start interpreting partial effort from others as lack of care. We have kind of this silent ultimatum that if someone doesn't meet my unspoken standard, then I'm going to disengage. That same rigidity that we can place on ourselves very, very often, it also becomes rigidity toward others. And then that rigidity erodes the connection that we so desperately crave with the people in our lives, as well as the connection and relationship that we have with ourselves. So if we can make a shift and start redefining what success actually looks like for us, maybe success is staying in a relationship with yourself and with others, and we focus on real consistency, what we are actually doing, versus kind of an imagined consistency, what we imagine that we will do when the circumstances are completely perfect. And also this shift around and a reframe for our expectations, because expectations are not a problem. It is when our expectations are inflexible and very, very rigid that they can become a problem for ourselves and for the relationships that we have with other people, the goals that we have for ourselves, whatever it is that we are trying to achieve. So as we are kind of in the midst of the first month of 2026, instead of having some resolutions that feel very rigid and very structured, and I have to be perfect and kind of all or nothing black and white thinking, what if we experiment? So one experiment that you could explore is choose a commitment that feels so small that it is almost laughable. And the goal is not the impact of that commitment, but the goal that is worth celebrating is the follow through. And can I keep this promise even on an off day? And then catch the ultimatum. If your mind says, if it can't be fill in the blank, then I don't want it. And instead, exploring what's a middle option or several middle options that I might be ignoring. And then at the end of the day, where did I show up, even if it was completely imperfect? And let showing up be the win. And a final experiment that you could try over the next week or two is noticing an expectation that you have for someone else and really asking yourself, is this a preference or a requirement? And what would happen if I allowed some form of a partial meeting of that expectation? And the key to this is sometimes it doesn't go exactly the way that you want it to go. But where can you find something that is worth celebrating and kind of retraining your brain kind of out of that all or nothing thinking? Because progress doesn't come from demanding perfection, whether it's of you or someone else. It comes from choosing to remain engaged and to continue to show up. And if you find that this idea feels a little bit daunting and you're just naturally kind of falling into the, oh, I have to do it this way, I have to try all of these different ways that have been suggested, and you just need a little bit of help learning how to make this shift, I would love to help you with that and work alongside you. Again, I'm offering 4 free sessions to 7 new clients who sign up through the end of January 2026. And let's just have a conversation and see if we are a good fit and go from there. Until next time, take care. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If so, would you take 30 seconds and share it with a friend who may be feeling like she's broken too? I'd love it if you'd leave a quick review for the show on Apple Podcasts. It brings me so much joy to know this podcast is helping you. Now it's time for me to stop talking and go soothe my senses in nature. I'll meet you back here next week for another episode. Take care.